Hi, Airplane.
Hey, welcome to the Art of Rock. It's Saturday morning, and we're here. Um, uh, I want to acknowledge the Tongva people as being the rightful owners of the land that I'm on, and I thank them for their survival. We suffered a bit of a loss this week. Our dear friend Drake passed away. So, if you want to, if you want to do his family a big favor, the GoFundMe is still going, so throw a couple of bucks that way, because his family could really utilize it. This is such a dark, hard time for them. So I think it is extremely important that as a community, we're behind them and we hold them up. Um, Rezi, thanks for co-hosting.
You are very
And
welcome, and I extend the condolences to everybody also.
Thanks, man. And we're going to be, hopefully, a whole bunch of wonderful bands are going to be jumping in. When we're done here today, we're going to raid on over to MTV TV. Um, you guys brought up a wonderful question about rage baiting as inspiration. And there's a lot of rage bait and not a lot of inspiration. So if you can convert rage bait into inspiration, tell me about this. This is fascinating, please.
So we were talking a little bit before we went live here, and there were a few things that were atypical to be watching. And Alex mentioned, "Well, I thought that was rage bait, and I didn't click on it yet." And I was like, "Yeah, I had the same feeling." But and then also Rick Beato mentioned that his daughter looked at his videos and said, "Oh, you're making rage bait," and he was like, I'm saying stuff." So there's a little insight into maybe the people that are doing it aren't truly doing it as bait. And maybe if we watch some of these things that were put off by initially, we might be able to get something because the one, the example that I was talking about, this woman, Kara, um, I didn't think it was going to be fulfilling, but she ended up being a very hard worker and interesting and having stuff in common. And I looked at her gear and her practices and her efforts, and I was like, I feel kind of charged by this. Like the amount of dedication she has to doing really high level stuff as an independent is impressive and cool. And I like doing that. And maybe I don't toot my own horn about it so much or say that I'm doing it or even end up having something to show for it. But it's an interesting angle on stuff. And I don't know where that fits into looking at stuff you might not regard as what you want to see and then taking something into the creative process with you. But have you had this happen or do you have counterexamples of anything maybe? Alex, talk about it.
So I think it's always interesting if you see what other people are doing, even though they are not musically in the same universe as you, because it's a different scene, it's a different genre. They work completely differently. Maybe they promote completely differently. They have a different way of framing themselves as an artist. Um, for example, of course, everyone these days thinks about how to promote their music on um, uh, things like TikTok and so on. And then you look at different scenes, and maybe they do more community involvement. They try to be just regular influencers, which I think doesn't work so well, but maybe it works for them. Um, yeah, and maybe the way they do music videos, maybe they just point and shoot or just do a live stream, and I don't know. And also the second thing about engagement bait or rage bait, and as I want to say, not every engagement bait has to be rage bait. So you could also try to manipulate the promotional algorithm and just maybe asking a question before you promote your thing
I
in
like
order
that.
to get more interest on your I think like social media has this kind of momentum parameter. So if your previous post went off, they push your next one a bit more. And something some people do is just ask questions. Hey, what's your favorite Carla, what artist got you into alternative music?
Carl, do you want to
Yeah,
jump in
it's
on
always
that? Is that like
I'm loving. Thank you. This is such a fascinating topic to take something as angry and negative as rage baiting and turn it into a part of your music. Alex and Brett and Razi, so do you have examples of where something has enraged you, where there's been rage bait? Specifically, you've felt enraged from something on the internet and it's made its way into your music. It's fired your music. You have somehow turned that into a positive experience. Please, this is wonderful. Let me
I
know.
want to go back to one earlier example than that, and just to sort of frame this, like I remember a dinner conversation as like a not yet counterculturally inclined young person, and somebody said something disparaging about pop music and production, and I was really interested in becoming a producer as a kid, and they were like, "Yeah, pop music without garbage that they make," and I thought about it for a second. I was like, "Yeah, that's the way I believed too," until you said that out loud, and I realized there's people doing high level stuff somewhere in that chain. If it made it to you and to your ears, listener, then either the PR people or the artist themselves with their singing or the producer that put the beats together or the producer that did the mix, like there's high level stuff going on there to look into. And I think it kind of shaped my DIY like inspiration right from the jump there, as far as that distance between this pisses me off because its message is the way it is, and we can still do that. We can still operate at this like, artistic integrity level, where we're having ideas and feelings and putting them forth with polish and presentation and effort, and making something that is finished and appealing, usable. So I know that's a little bit more vague, but more recently, I haven't really connected with it. So I can't, Carl, say that, yeah, there's a thing, except more in general. I got into doing videos on the internet as a response to people's poor contributions, or ones that I thought aesthetically were disagreeable. So even being here in a way is related to that. And I took it on, around COVID times as a kind of a quest to learn how to do good mics and good cameras and good lights and stuff like that. So I know it's a little bit general, but let me throw it to Brett. Maybe you've got a more specific thing.
Hey guys, slightly more specific, I guess, as an answer to Carl's question of things that I would see out in the wild, that would essentially be rage baiting. I would say that has also made it to some creative process. I would say the United States just in general, for a long time now. You know, it's kind of I see it as kind of as a so on the one hand, you need to have info that's going to piss you off anyway. So you have a aversion to seeking said info. So they try to piss you off so that you have an interest again, which then makes you mad and you have a need to get that out. So you put it in your own headspace, your own world, your own works, and therapeutically, music, art, etc. And I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think we have this trend of the sort of general attitude, and I also like Alex's distinction between engagement bait and rage bait, truly, because they can be the same. Carl, do you have something in mind that actually you've brought through? I mean, you seem like you might have a more direct, here's a
Yeah.
thing that pissed me off, and it ended up in a song.
I to give a fine example of someone who is pure motherfucker and was the master of manipulating rage bait was Drake. So if you don't know Drake's band, it's 40 Octaves Below, and go buy one of Drake's albums. And Drake's music was wonderfully political, and it was wonderful to hear someone else's perspective and the way that rage was turned into something musical. and I could, you'd listen to Drake's music, and so many times you'd go, yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about there. I find that it's important to. I've always got my phone. Well, I'm trying not to have my phone close to me so much anymore, but I will often run to my phone and write something down when I hear someone say something really ridiculous, and I hear them say something that, or it's positive. I'll write it down, and it will make its way into lyrics. And often I will quote them because I won't sample them. I'll quote them, and I will. Yeah, it's interesting. Remind me, the gentleman who I just love to hate. What's his name?
What?
Come on, the guy
are
I
you
love
pulling
to
a
hate.
reference?
No, yeah, we were talking about him before.
Oh, this is real. Like it's.
Yeah, what's his name? Come on, the video, the guy, the blonde hair,
Oh,
Rick.
you're talking about Rick Beato.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
Rick Beato is really interesting because he's adapt. We lost one of our a good friend to cancer recently, named Drake. So Drake was always fucking there. So that's Drake's GoFundMe. So we're gonna throw some money to Drake. Drake was a Canadian artist, and he remixed Angelspit. I remixed him. He's a fucking legend. He was a legend. Anyway, Rick Beato will say things that, and I appreciate him, and I appreciate a lot of these guys because, like, in a way, they're absolutely fucking right. And there's a lot to learn from what he would say, and he'll say something about something, and I'll go, well, fuck you, Rick Beato, knowing that the guy is right, or his argument has a lot of ground. If he's talking about a bass line or a drum line or something, it's like, well, fuck you, I'm going to try that.
If I can interject just briefly,
Please.
his daughter mentioned in his latest video that his stuff reads like rage bait, and he was surprised to hear it. This is one of the things I was mentioning in the preamble. So
I recall
you're onto something.
that's
there.
really fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that because there's so much rage, man. There's so much rage, and sometimes there's so much rage you can taste it in your mouth. It tastes like metal. And that might be because you're so angry, you're grinding your teeth, and there's blood in your mouth from grinding your teeth. But it's at a point now where, we can taste that rage, and to be able to take that rage and turn it into music. Like there's an Australian, I'm knee deep in Australian politics now, and I'm watching this vile racist fascism spread to Australia, and I'm seeing stuff that's not being reported here, but it's a big deal. And I'm taking notes. And how do you turn that rage into hope and put that hope into your lyrics? And be a smart ass about it. Yes, D, anger is an energy. Absolutely. Yeah, adapt. That's cool. I know you, babe. You're being respectful and beautiful, and I'm grateful. It's all about, and that's the funny thing about industrial music is that it's fucking angry because and that comes down to the other thing is how do you deal with the rage? I guess for us, we're lucky we put it into music. I'm prattling now. Raziel, what are you thinking?
I got a little checklist here. Think about what the trigger is, identify the actual trigger in the rage bait source, like look into it and make a note. Then separate what you're perceiving to what you actually felt bad about. Like where in you is this reaction? What are you reacting to in the comment? Is it a shortcoming of yours? Is it a thing that you politically disagree with? Is it a moral issue? And then take that emotional charge and actually note what the emotion is, which way you're actually feeling. Like give it a name, give it a little bit of a story, and then you're almost into this like, okay, now we're almost at lyrics, and you can convert it into actual, like, what am I doing? Is this going to be a title? Is this going to be a style of a song? Is it going to be a lyric? And then you've got your little project set out before you where all of those notes you can turn into something poetic or something action or some sort of a plan, and go forward with it. And now you did your there's your process. You try that. I don't
Could
know.
I ask you? That's brilliant. Thank you. Can I ask you? Have there been examples in your life, and can you give examples where the rage, the words, the whatever have made their way into your music specifically?
Yes. There is a track, quite simply, on my the last album that I released that is just about the political climate, and it's quite directly about what a fucking idiot and asshole and how much I disagree with the personality type of the political figure. And I don't remember my process, but I remember feeling ways, and I remember taking those feelings and trying to do something. My process is to obfuscate it and put it under a lot of words. That's the way that I deal with this stuff, is to try to turn it into something that you don't have to recognize necessarily as what the topic is. I think you might guess that. And certainly if I told you, it's all right there in the words. But yes, 100% there is a anti-establishment against the current dominant paradigm, word for word reaction song that I was able to derive from those feelings,
That's
and
great.
probably some others, but that one comes to mind easily.
That's great, man. Thank you. That's fantastic. Alex, chime in here.
I have some scrap lyrics that go into a similar direction, but nothing finished. However, I took for myself a pledge that I'll stop being a cynic and be as genuine as I possibly can, because I feel that that's needed right now.
That's brilliant, man. Thank you. Brett,
Rage is a native language. Um, yeah, so the song I'm working on now, actually, all of them, every single one of them is about some sort of rage. Um, there's no exception. It's like the names have been changed to protect the identity of those. The stories are also changed. I'm not trying to throw people under the bus. I'm trying to drive this one. I'll just leave that at that. But this was something I was talking to Rezi about before we started just a little bit, in regards to vocal comping and everything like that, and how do you take those pieces? So literally the piece I'm working on right now, the first part of it is where I've taken the rage about the political system, turned it into this dystopian robot, or I'm turning it into a dystopian robot that hands you the first two stanzas. And then from there, it gets, matter. um, so, my process is to not sit there and take a specific thing. It's more to group things that are alike, build a place for them to be, and that's kind of, I mean, and then turn them into art, either physically or physically.
thank you. I've had something to ask specifically you, and I've forgotten. It's interesting. So, I was thinking how it's interesting that sometimes you're so mad, all you can do is scream at a canvas. You just want to put blood in your mouth and scream at the canvas and let it spray. And I was thinking about how, you were talking about woodwork before, and I'm sorry, man, I didn't mean to cut you off. Because we'll get back to your woodwork, because I'm going to talk about painting. There's a painting by this guy named Francis Bacon, and he was a brilliant English painter. And there's actually a movie called Love is the Devil. If you ever get a chance, you need to see this movie. It's beautifully terrifying. It's heartbreakingly amazing that puts this guy's artwork into perspective. And I've been blessed that I've actually stood in front of a Francis Bacon painting called the Meat Pope, and it's hanging it, or was hanging. It might still be in LA, and it's a painting of a pope. And if and somebody is welcome to get a Google an image of Meat Pope, stick it in the chat, and I'll show you this picture.
I think there's several.
Yeah, find me a nice one, or whatever. Just maybe there's a page that's got a picture of Meat Pope. And it's horrifying. And what's crazy, because I saw recently, I bring this up because recently I saw an image of a painting of a pope, and it was this beautiful painting, and it said, the painting, when you looked at it, we went, what a nice guy. He's got a lot on his mind and he's thinking a lot. I don't even remember who painted it, but it was a beautiful painting. And then you look at Meat Pope, and this is directly about music and lyrics, because it's fascinating how sometimes when lyrics are screamed in a disorder conglomeration of rage. Thank you so much, Alex. God, that was easy, wasn't it? So this is Meat Pope. Did I call it the right thing? Hold on.
Figure with meat, 75.
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeesh.
Interesting. I thought it was called Meat Pope. I'm starting a band called Meat Pope.
I was gonna say you filtered that quite well for your project there.
Meat Pope.
Whatever he called it.
Figure with meat. So now I'm really hoping it is not actually called Meat Pope, because I'm so fucking using that as a band name. Yeah, that's it. Figure with meat. That's the one I saw. It's hold on, I'm gonna put this in the chat. My point being is that hey Adam, it's when you look at that painting and you see the brush strokes and the way that it's like, wow, this is terrifying. Look at that from the perspective of that's lyrics and that's rage. Like, tell me there's not so much fucking rage in that. And it's interesting how it's not, look at the Pope is angry, and this is what I think about the Pope. It's not saying that at all. It's saying a whole bunch of words, incoherent words, but when they come together, there's this mass, and mass. Meat, M-E-A-T. D, not meet the Pope, but meat as in eat the Pope, or the Pope of meat. I don't know. I don't think it was actually called that, but that's now officially a band. So yeah, that's something really fantastic. Like you know, because I was listening to someone's lyrics recently. They were actually my lyrics, going, "Why do I hate these lyrics?" And then I realized they're just not. They're not. They're not. You know, they didn't have that. Because, you know, when you stand and you swear at someone, there are a whole bunch of words that are, you know, incoherent, don't make any sense. You know what I mean? So there you go, Meat Pope. Sorry, I've totally lost the point now because I'm just going, wow, what font would I use for that band? Does anybody...
I found a quote related to what you were saying, and I can't quite verify the source. Whereas in Europe, the height of originality is genius. In America, the height of originality is skill in concealing origins.
Wow.
And yeah, that you know, we're kind of getting at that, like how deeply do you bury your source there for the rage? And as the last step in filtering it, you are becoming the source. You are embodying the feelings, filtering them through your attitudes and experiences and personality, and turning it into something wholly inspired and yours, hopefully. And I think that is a great thing to do with rage, personally, if you had a choice. And I think it's a great way to cheat at being inspired by things that are trying to just garner views.
Um, I want to make a sidestep. We can keep talking about this because it's actually Brett. Please, what are you thinking? Thanks, Rosie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that is like 99. I agree 100%. That's like 99% of the reason this project exists at all. It is to do something positive with that energy instead of where it wants to go. It's a force to redirect. The energy is going to be there. The input's already present. Comes from everywhere. You got to do something with it. And that's where it comes like Meat Pope, paintings, uh, yeah, all these other things. But they're all mechanisms to redirect that energy into something better.
Brett, if you want Meat Pope, it's yours. Because it just says demon hate all over it. Like, I don't think I could do it the misjustice that you could do it.
Carl, why didn't you offer me Meat Pope?
Well,
What if
because
I want Meat Pope?
Drake, well, we are all Meat Pope. We are all Meat Pope. But come on, Resi. Like,
Yeah, fair.
who's really?
I would squander Meat Pope.
Yeah, I know. But Brett's gonna fuck that one up in the most brutal way with the chainsaw. Do we want to? I'd love to keep talking about this. I want to just take one step to the side because we were talking about vocal comping and we were talking about vocal comping and last week, and I want to bring this up again because Alex brought up, do you cut the breath sounds out of it? The reason I want to specifically talk about this is that when you are, when you're doing something with rage, the interesting thing is, and when you're fucking laying it down, and you're either whispering laying it down or screaming yelling it down, laying it down, there's only so many takes you can do before you wear out the engine. Does anybody want to throw in about tricks for bringing that sweet aggression and cutting out breaths? Razi, hit me.
Yeah, I don't know which way to go with this. Like I guess the most of my experience with cutting up vocals and comping from takes is with my own stuff. I mean, I've done more either me or rap artists that are not accomplished, let's say, like a lot of beginners. And neither of those really present a lot of opportunities for bringing out aggression. A lot of them have been like Xanax rappers and stuff rather than, thug style stuff and my own thing. I would like to maybe also admit that I'm interested in how to get distortion and aggression from the vocal production system, but it doesn't work easily for me. It's not something that I have. I don't have a lot of distortions and things, so I don't find it in there. And I'm looking for how I've done it in these cases, and the question of which breaths and noises and grunts and off mic effects to leave in comes to mind, just not with my own stuff and not under creative relationships. But in one remix, I took the singer's somewhat inspired by the silences between MLK's speech that was going around in the early 2000s. I took all of the gasps, breaths, trail offs, couple of throat clearings, and turned that into a rhythm loop for the head of the song. And I don't know if the artist was offended or liked it, but I got paid for the mix, so yeah, it worked out. But it was kind of cool in the end. And it's like the opposite of vocal comping. It's like really just sampling, like surgical micro edits to get a, like Pink Floyd style vignette of noises. Hopefully that's related enough. And I'm going to think more about how absent aggressive delivery. I've brought out more presence, but anyway, that one came to mind as a very different approach.
That's fantastic. I love that. I'm probably going to steal that, and Brent's going to use it in Meat Pope. What's a Xanax wrapper?
Well, they make references to pills a lot, for one, and also the energy is really low, man. Like really low.
So is this
I don't know if
hard?
that's an actual genre. It's just maybe a disparaging term that I threw out right there, somewhat pejorative. But I liked this one guy that I have in mind. Like he was pretty talented, but he was definitely more.
Meat Pope and the Xanax wrappers. This is
yeah.
shit's writing itself.
Yeah.
So that's really fascinating. Apparently there is a it is on Google, Xanax wrappers. That's amazing. Okay. I'm just going to sidestep this for a minute and throw it to Alex.
Damn, what do I wanted to say?
How do you top
Sorry, I
Xanax
had
wrapper?
to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course. The first thing obviously is to sing in an aggressive way, but you have to be really careful not to nuke your vocal cords. Apart from that, as previously mentioned, light distortion, even parallel distortion, I think can be really great. And of course, compression. And yeah, maybe I think I had a third thing in mind, but I forgot.
Thank you. And you could also weave this into your question or your thoughts, Brett. But like when you're really fucking angry, what do you do? What are your vocals doing? Are you yelling? Are you screaming? Are you whispering? Are you being super polite? Like what's I don't know, Brett. What's your thoughts on everything?
All right, now this may take some going back and forth a little bit, but uh, I surprisingly I use very little distortion, meaning that there's little distorting effects. If I use a distortion, it is going to be a granulizer of some sort. It's not so much about distortion, overdrive, things like that, that actually cause clipping as much as it is what I'm actually doing with my voice. It's also typically very low volume. It's about energy management and breath control. Uh, the what I'm doing is very similar to what a death metal singer would do. But because it's low energy, I'm not harshing my voice. I've got a low voice, so I can play with that dark range easily. Uh, it becomes a matter of capturing it without blowing out the mic. So I've always recorded vocals like this, sending the sound out that way. Here, like this, where the corner of my mouth is touching the mic, but all the sound is going that way. That way I'm not popping the mic. Yes, I have a screen. I don't always use it, and that's intentional. Uh, the problem with doing any kind of distorted vocals that I found personally is capturing the highs, which are going to be the energy needed to transmit to the ear that distortion. If you want to be sinister, sound like a fucking monster, you know? Replicate what a damn tiger, a snake, things that are innately something people fear. They're scared of the dark. They're scared of monsters that come from the dark that they can't see that are going to eat them. Have sharp teeth, make it sound like it, you know, in that regard, so a lot of those things that you would do when you're really infuriated with somebody and you're having you're just below throwing fists are exactly what you want to do. You just want to manage the energy behind it so that you don't blow out the mic. Then you get into what you want the overall product to sound like, right? You've got the distortion, you've got the recording, but now you have other needs that are more musical. So like on the one I'm working on, there is one part where I did a punch-in recording because the timing is that tight. That was one of the things I mentioned last week. It's it's one of the things that I also used on the previous song about Hurricane Katrina, in which I needed the vocals just to keep calm, just like the tide. Um, there is also the fact that I'm taking the first couple stanzas of it and I'm actually just passing it straight through a vocoder so it sounds like a robot. And that's where you start talking about editing out breaths and things like that. Well, a robot doesn't breathe. So every single breath had to come out. And another trick I did there was to use a vocal synthesizer, Fruity Speech. And I did a doubling in which I matched as on time, the phrasing of both mine and its vocals. They're not supposed to be on time. Exactly. That's another trick to get some more of that distortion. And that's where you start getting these disharmonic things. Part of that can come from your voice itself. If you again going back to death metal singers, the way you use the vocal folds, and the other part of that is simply taking two tracks, not worrying at all about the tone, meaning this is an A, but just doing one maybe that is to an A, and the other one as though you're having an argument. And it doesn't matter. And I promise when you marry those two together, you're going to get a distortion that you really can't otherwise make. Couple of thoughts.
Nice thoughts. I always cut out breathings. Unless if I'm going into the chorus, I'll have a breath before the chorus. But I always cut out breathing. And it adds a really amazing, it adds a vibe. I mentioned it last week how it's the similar thing to when you're doing a take and you don't blink your eyes. If you don't breathe, it just makes this really interesting vibe. Raziel, what do you think about this? Thanks,
I
Brett.
had one quick question back to Brett. Do you usually record your final takes handheld?
Yes.
Cool.
I have, and I will on occasion still pull out the mic stand, and I will put that on there. But it becomes more of a thing about whatever you're doing, do it consistently and do it with practice, so that that's your default zone, and then you have all those other things you can do for different reasons.
I got you. I think it's a great way. I mean, many great rock vocals have been cut with a 58 in a handheld, and even with speakers in the room instead of cans, just flipped out of phase or at the deaf part of the microphone. I like the technique. I'm gonna do that more. Some of my final takes have occasionally been like right from this. Like I'm just here. Here's the idea, get it down, or punches. But generally, I'm so wrapped up in trying to be like Frank Sinatra with a starboard stand and a U-47 and a spider mount in the booth, like with a highball or a martini and cigarettes. Like the whole thing with the stand makes me feel like it's time to do vocals. So I haven't had as many opportunities to just be like off the cuff. I'm fucking on this. I like it. The other thing that came to mind talking about the production techniques, and Carl, your original prompt for the anger and vocals, Chino from Deftones, Chino Moreno, he's got a different approach. Like they count as metal, and his stuff counts as what sounds like angry to me. But I think he's more seething. Like it's an interesting. I don't know. Maybe I've missed. I'm not. I don't know as much of their stuff, but they came to mind immediately when I was trying to think of an alternate angle on angry vocals and how to produce them. But they bring the levels way up, so they're unnaturally loud. So what you've got is an intimacy, like it's the effect of being close to him. Because why am I hearing a person singing quietly but so loud above raging guitars? It's because psychological effect of being in a he's right in your ear and maybe he's menacing you a little bit. It's a complete effect though. It's very effective effect, if you will. Um, mm,
Really interesting point about the death tones. That guy's seething. And also, Brett, I think you've inspired me and Alex. Alex, I'll get to you in a sec about a handheld mic because I know Bjork did almost everything with a 57, jumping around a studio, which is mind blowing to me. Because if you do that, it's going to be a totally different energy. Alex, what are your thoughts?
I hope Razi didn't say that just in the moment I wasn't paying attention because I was reading chat. I think another thing one can do is to sing through a bad mic, like old telephone mic wired up to be like a regular instrument plug, or maybe emulate that by just maybe band passing or just lowering your lows and a bit of your highs and then distorting it. As well as maybe adding flanger, which can invoke like a sense of really loud volume.
These are great ideas. I need to buy a 57. I don't have a 57. And I need, like, I've got a fucking thing.
you got a 58. Just take the windscreen off.
Yeah, well, I've got to, I don't even have a 58. But I've got some piece of shit mic that came with the Helicon, and I guess it's an okay mic, but it's not like 57's got a sound. This is great. I love
Does
this.
that mean we're
Thank
going to
you.
segue into mic selection there pretty soon? Because it
We
sounded like you were
could.
almost talking about it, but I don't know if we're done with angry.
You know what? It's logical to go to mic selection. Do you want to talk about mic selection?
I mean, you just slid right into it there so nicely that it made me think about, yeah, everybody needs a 58. A Shure SM58, even though I'm talking into a PV dynamic microphone from the 80s that I got from
Goodwill.
fire sale. Yeah, it was actually literally a fire sale. You need a 58 because you can bang stuff with it, and I've hammered the windscreens back into shape with it. Yeah,
Go camping and hammer in the pegs into the ground.
throw it in your luggage, take it around with you, and honestly,
Pretend it's a lightsaber. Yeah.
for sure, I've not been able to tell a lot of the time which in my punches were done on a 58 versus on my tube mic. I have a large diaphragm Soviet tube mic in the booth that I use for most of the stuff, but then sometimes I'll punch with a 58. This is not a 58. The 58's on a stand over there. And sometimes they just sound the same because of conditions and mix and everything like that. And this really doesn't even make a difference. The 58s are cheap, 58s are durable, 58s are consistent, 58s are predictable because you know them from mic to mic. And if you don't have a counterfeit one, they're those things. 57s and 58s are the same capsule, if I'm not mistaken, but the 58 has the additional blast filter in addition to the foam that's on the capsule. And they just sound good. They sound terrific. They're a good mic. You can absolutely cut your handheld final vocals with it. The handling noise is low. It's a known sound. The proximity effect is, predictable. You know where you're going to get what sound from it if your technique is there. And once you've used a 58 for 30 years, you know exactly what they do. So first mic, your 58 is more versatile than a 57 even. I think a Shure SM57 is a good mic to have if you have a lot of mics. But I think if you're going to just pick a mic, like I need to learn one mic. I'm new at this. I've never recorded before. Don't get a USB desktop mount, multi-pattern, fucking Omni and figure of 8 and cardioid and hypercardioid. Don't bother. Stick with this thing, learn what it sounds like off axis, learn what it sounds like when you do the Brett vocal, learn what it sounds like when you put extra foam on it. I should have a blast filter on this one because my plosives are drilling it. Learn how to control the sound that it gets when you're at different distances from it, because obviously the bass is more coupled when you're close to it. And there's so fucking much you can do with mic placement and a mic that you know well and can replace easily and can always find one when you're doing a recording. 58's definitely the way to go. There's a lot of similar ones. There's even cheap knockoffs that are similar, but that's the way to go. First mic.
I totally agree. And also, dude, they're $100.
Yeah, and the price has been fixed at 79 to $100 for 40 years. It's nuts.
Yeah, so yeah, I can't. I think all of us would say get a damn 58, because they're so good. You can carry one in your purse and you can use it as a weapon. Like you can put a mic cable and click it in, and you bang someone with that thing. You'll fucking yeah, exactly. Wind around your head and you'll take their teeth out.
This one goes into my luggage and into, the case and comes with me
Yeah.
to gigs and stuff. I have a
Um,
black windscreen for it.
and it's one of the rare mics that you can just drop it and it doesn't give you shit. And you can probably buy a 58 fine secondhand. Although I wouldn't really, but if you were in a pinch,
You can throw the windscreen and basket into the dishwasher and clean them and sanitize them, though.
wow. And that's another thing to remember is that anything that bacteria in your mouth will live in that pop guard actively for 36 hours. Thank you, CDC. Yeah, get a 58. Get a 58. And the great thing about a 58 is you can use it in the studio. And I am so inspired to do vocal tracks with a 58 now. In And also then you can take the thing live. So you're using your mic live, and I highly fucking recommend that one. Put your name on it, all that jazz, paint it, whatever. Alex, what's your experience with mics?
That's a really nice segue because I just wanted to say that back in the day when I started out with electric instruments, I really hated the 58 because I felt like it wouldn't replicate my vocals very well, even though wasn't really experienced, but I felt like it made me sound like shit. I think that was not entirely the mic's fault because I think the one we had was like ancient and gunked up, and the room we were in, the PA was badly set up. We had no idea how to use an EQ, so that was all things that made it sound worse than it could have been. But because I didn't like the 58, I bought a M1 by Rode. But in retrospect, it's almost a 58. I think it has like a bit more high end, but not much. Um, I used that. I learned with that. It served me well. I still have it. But then I had like this one mixer with really weak preamps. So I wanted to buy one of these things called a cloud lifter, or maybe a gain raising thing you plug between the mic and your input. But they had like a Shure mic on sale, which was less than the thing that would boost the gain. So I bought that, and for me, I was much more happy with it because suddenly I had like this whole air band that I didn't have with the 58. Um, I always wanted to buy a proper studio mic, but I never felt like bothering because all my apartments I had were so noisy that I needed something with really strong directionality to cut it out. But I'm now thinking about if I have the money, what kind of studio mic to get.
Thank you. So you've got a 58.
I've got the M1, which is almost like a 58.
Okay. Um, I I'm all about Rode. Partly they're Australian, and partly I just think the N1, N for Nelly one, or is it the N2? I don't know what I've got. It's like a couple of $100. It's fucking great. Other thing about a 58 and with the Rode is you can stick it in front of anything. You can stick a 58 in front of a guitar. Guitar sounds awesome. You can stick it in a kick drum, use it as an overhead, a snare, anything you want, and it's such a bloody good microphone. I'm going to stop talking now, unless you want to reply to the garbage that just flowed out of my mouth.
NT1, the studio condenser, or is it?
Yeah. It's either an NT1 or an NT1A or an NT2 or something. It wasn't the horribly expensive one. It was only like a couple of $100. Rhodes were very cheap in Australia because they're from Australia. And everybody uses a Rode because they're from Australia. Anyway, whatever. I say go Rode. That's just what I say anyway. And also, when you fucking if you mic up a guitar with one of those Rhodes, oh, they sound good. Dude, I have to get a 58. I was just thinking, I really miss having Ivan here, knowing that Ivan's looking at reverb right now. But okay, I'm going to shut up now. Brett, what are your thoughts on everything?
So, and you know, yeah, definitely listen to someone who actually sings, uh, and describe their equipment, you know, what they're doing with different microphones, and their voice is going to be different than what I'm doing playing industrial. Um, and you know, very basically, it was cheap to start with 57 type clones early on. You know, I mean, they've been running around when I was in a, you know, in my bedroom, much smaller than this, and had the quadriverb, and you know, TVs and radios and everything else were being pumped in because the microphone had an on and off switch. It had a slightly different characteristic, and part of how I got to be where I prefer just handheld comes literally just from years of that being the only option. And so I learned really quickly if I wanted, you know, if I wanted more of the lower notes, I need to get down here with the mic a little bit where they're actually coming from. If I want higher, I need to come off, and I probably need to back off on my voice and use more of a whisper or a hiss. That comes with trades. It picks the 58 or 57, whichever, both of them, same difference. Pick it up just fine, and you do have to do post production. Um, the what I ended up liking about them overall is they're just no nonsense. I can blow a condenser out, no problem. Especially if I get into my more aggressive stuff where I will actually do briefly things that strain your voice. I don't do them for very long because you can't if you want to keep doing that. um, but yeah, you know, I found that most of the condensers that I do like that, I'll clip them internally. Um, you know, because of the way I record. Again, you're talking about with all of this stuff, learn the instrument itself, and this is very much one, and so is your voice. For me, it really became kind of that thing of I've got a throat that I'm gripping while I'm doing this, and that's how I view it. Maybe that's helpful.
That's really helpful. Thanks. And I'm just going to pick up on what you said about the microphone is an instrument, and you have to learn how to play it. You have to learn how to use it. And proximity, like you said, Brett, is that's so critical. And when you watch someone who's a really good comic or a really good singer, watch their mic technique. Like Bill Burr, is that his name? Bill Burr, his mic technique's actually really good. But I reckon the best dude I've ever seen with a fucking microphone is John Farnham, an Australian singer. And the way he will come right off that 58, he uses 58s. I don't think he uses beta 58s. He just uses a fucking 58. He comes right off it when he's hitting those big notes and right on it. And he always moves it away when he breathes. Fucking great shit. Yeah, it's an instrument. You got to learn how to use it. Razi, what are your thoughts on this?
Chocolate rain. I move away from the mic to breathe. Is that reference lost on you, Carl?
Yeah,
judging by
yeah,
your
I don't know what
expression?
the fuck you're talking about.
Interesting.
What
There's
is
a very
it?
excellent video of a boy, I think it's a boy, seems boy-like, playing a auto-generated rhythm on his keyboard over and over, and the lyric is about chocolate rain, and his caption is, I move away from the mic to breathe, I think, so something close to that. It's a classic of mic technique instruction.
Okay.
It was very viral. Trust me on that one. Yeah, I totally forgot where I was going from 58 to people's techniques and stuff. But we did just drop a bunch of maybe your second mic ideas in the chat and into the Twitch. Um, Knowing why you need another mic is pretty important, though, if you're going to get anything out of it. And to be like really frank, part of it is that vibe. Like, I think I get more detail out of a large diaphragm condenser. I certainly don't need as much gain. I usually use the large diaphragm condenser that I own, which is an Octava modified nice one, because it's got a really nice wrought iron shock mount and looks like a substantial thing. And I bought it used and it smelled like incense for the first 2 years. And I kind of missed that. And it just had a thing about it. Like, it's this chunk of metal and it has Cyrillic writing on it. And like, I don't know, I found that important enough to, like I was replacing a really high quality tube mic that was on loan with this one, and it still had the mojo that I sort of wanted out of hanging mic in front of you, studio style. So between what you can do differently with that is probably, I don't know if it's as substantial as finding a truly experimental utility second mic. So I'm not even going to necessarily recommend large diaphragm condenser or tube condenser as your second mic. It's nice to have, it looks cool, it's got vibe, but having an omnidirectional test mic or something like that might be an interesting second mic because it can do things that a cardioid can't do. Because part of the nature of the cardioid is that when you get close to it, it's got less pickup from the back and more pickup from the front. So it's coupled with the low frequency. So you get what we call proximity effect, which is the low end. Unbalanced. Omnidirectional mics generally suffer from that less because they're not rejecting anything from any angle. They're picking up from everywhere. So you can do some very interesting close-up microscopic style recording. So if you're sampling or recording interesting sound environmental stuff, maybe an omni test mic, like a flat calibrated surgical omnidirectional test mic might be an interesting thing because it performs so differently than the dynamic cardioid. If you're going that direction, which I don't even know what direction that would be, but there's a lot of things you can do with one of those that the dynamic cardioid won't do. So maybe you got thoughts on that, Carl?
No, I'm just thanking you. That was a great rant.
Alex has his hand up about it, though. I know.
If I could just be super quick, I want to hear Alex's thoughts as well. It's another thing to really think about, like, because Adapt says condenser mics are great for real vocalists who have subtle skills and nuances, and if you're a screamer like me, dynamics where it's at. I kind of agree. That, if you're going to, and that's the really good thing about having a nice condenser mic as opposed to a 58, is that if you ever do a session or something, gee, who knows, where you've got some amazing vocalist, you're gonna want to put them in front of a beautiful mic. But I don't know. It's a thing. You go from a deep mind to a fucking wiggy wogger synthesizer. So whatever. Alex, what are your thoughts?
First of all, if you haven't been addicted to the internet in 2007 like I was and haven't heard Structured Rain, I think it's a good song. I didn't realize it was about institutional racism until somebody told me, and if you if you actually listen to the lyrics, it's bloody obvious. Yeah. The second thing about mics, I feel like there are two different philosophies about mic buying. One is I buy the thing that's trusted and that everybody gets because I know it works and I know it's good. The other philosophy is I get the thing that nobody gets, so I sound a bit different, which was the philosophy I chose back then. I think like it was a bit misguided because there's so much in your delivery that it's Mike's choice does matter, but not as much as your specific style of singing.
And placement.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and of course, EQing, which can also modify the sound of a mic to a vast degree. Yeah, and if you want to get to know your mic, just put on isolating headphones and sing into it, and then you get to know your mic to a different, much more intimate level. I think you don't get across this if you're just listening to it through a PA.
Thank you. So I've just discovered Chocolate Rain, and I'm actually watching this guy. It's like you said, this guy's mic technique's fucking amazing. He's even coming off for the sibilances as well, which is something you do. That's like Yoda. That's Yoda shit right there. And it's had 141 million views. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a fucking house. And it's really funny. People are probably watching this because they think it's a big joke. When most musicians are watching this going, this guy knows what he's fucking doing.
Are you absolutely sure that's not in the billions? I would be willing to
No, 100.
wager.
Well, I'm sure there's another one
Yeah,
somewhere,
yeah.
but the one, it's apparently this is his official channel. 141 million. Really, what fantastic. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now and throw this to Razi.
Anuket mentions directional mics outdoors, and although it's been a long time, the special case, without going into a parabolic reflector and being really conspicuous, although this is conspicuous as the shotgun mic, which is usually a long tube with open ridges to do the rejection from everything from the sides. Out of phase stuff is completely attenuated, and stuff directly in front of it in a narrow field of hearing is loudest. Those, yes, I have, but also for in studio. If you have a particularly noisy environment, or you're trying to get a slightly more close mic effect without having a mic on camera, the shotgun mic is a great option for that. From what I've heard, I haven't personally chosen to use it. I just stick a cardioid off screen, like, exactly right at the edge when I'm doing that. But more focused than a cardioid, which rejects a lot from the back and a ton from directly in back. A shotgun mic definitely can seek loudest things right in front of it in a fairly narrow place, which is great if you're in an echoey room or something like that and you want to point a mic like right at the voice and you sort of laser focus it on that sound. They're not magic, and all this stuff is really steeped in a lot of pseudo, like, incorrect information. But it will be quieter. The stuff coming back off the room and the noises in the room will be quieter than what it's actually pointed at. So shotgun mics. And in the case of an actual parabolic reflector with a microphone in it, those can be incredibly directional because there's physical large area blocking it, and also the waves coming in from all around bounce into the directly into the mic, and those can be dramatic, which my screens actually do a little parabolic reflection back at me from where I'm sitting. So I get a bit of a reflection coming off of these things in that exact way. So it's never far from my mind thinking about an actual parabolic disc microphone. But yeah, it can be an interesting, maybe third mic even, just a shotgun for picking out sounds from a distance if you want to get a unique sound where you can balance the room and still focus on the object that you're pointing it at. The shotgun mic is a cool option for that.
Thank you. I personally have not had luck with shotgun mics. I absolutely, yeah, totally. They have a place and they have a purpose, and it's really interesting that I will use a dynamic that's 4 or 5 feet away. I find, I don't know, maybe I just need to. I've just tried shotguns so often and I don't have luck with them.
Yeah, they're very specific.
Yeah.
And good ones and bad ones, and they have a tone, and if you're off axis, the tone shift is dramatic. It can be.
What's really crazy about a shotgun is that they pick up in this long tube, But the funny thing about them is that they pick up everything all the way down the tube, which is what I've noticed. Maybe for recording, they're great. But for in theater and in like if you're trying to get those back singers at the back, I don't know. I'm talking out of my ass right now. Brett, what are your thoughts on all this shit?
So the best use case I've seen yet to date of shotgun mic actually is with live musicians and you're miking the drum kit. Of course, there's standoff, but you're right in that a shotgun mic is going to struggle with a choir, where it's not going to struggle as much with a drum kit. It's not going to struggle as much with, say, uh, anything dissimilar. If you're picking out a person singing versus, a person playing the trumpet, you're going to be able to pick out that person singing, and there's going to be a distinction there. But yes, there is the bouncing around in the mic itself. There is the tuning issues and all that other stuff. It seems to me the best applications are for those things that you want to capture that are both at distance and not super dependent upon tone. Nature is a good example. Shotgun mics are used heavily in nature documentaries. They want to pick out the lion. They don't want as much of all the crickets and everything that's going around. They want to hear that thing growling over there. It's those dissimilar tones that if you're pointing at it, allow that microphone to excel. Parabolic mics. Parabolic mics are really a shotgun mic with a dish. The shotgun mic is, however, pointed at the center point, the reflector. And those can be a lot more fun because it actually forces it to become kind of like an audio laser of sorts, where you can pick up things super far away in a direction. And so that leads me to an experiment I did that may be interesting to y'all. That is where I took the SM58, the one without the big windscreen. And forgive me if I have my numbers backwards, but the one without the big windscreen. I literally stuck it in a tube. I think it was actually just a paper tube, and I hung it from. I took a 5-gallon bucket and I suspended it pointing up in a thunderstorm to capture the thunder, and it worked really damn well. In that particular case, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to condense the sound way the hell up here, coming from an amorphous area, into something that both has enough power to make it into the mic, enough dynamics, etc., to give me something to work with in the DAW.
I'm gonna try that. Next time I do a choir or something, I'm gonna fucking try that. Because there's always those fuckers at the back that you're trying to get and you can't fucking get them. So thank you, Brett. That's another piece of very interesting. Never thought of that one. Razi, what are you thinking?
One of the mics that we already have probably is a phased array beamforming mic. And on the topic of shotguns and parabolic reflectors and stuff, the newest technology is kind of fascinating. And I'm going to try to keep this brief because otherwise I'm just nerding out about something I don't know enough technically about. But if you get an array of several mics pointing in different directions and they're known polar pickup sensitivities, you can use the timing differences between them to cancel out other sounds coming in. And with fast enough computing, your MacBook Pro does this beautifully. Their studio quality sound is definitely doing some sort of phased array of the microphones built into it and focusing on where you're standing. And I think their home speaker systems also do this with the picking out your hailing words and intercom talking from an array of mics. Listen closely, figure out the timing differences, and just reinforce the one beam lobe, that is the one that is of interest, so it can cancel out environmental noise and other people talking. I don't know if they're ready for cutting vocals with, but there are modes coming up with your earphones and your phone and your laptop that are way better sounding than they were 5 years ago when there were single microphones, and to an impressive extent. Like even 2020 era Zoom calls where they were just using a mic and kind of doing some cancellation. Some of the multi-mic things are good sounding compared to that, or like I would say usable, good sounding. So there's something interesting going on there. I don't know when it's going to be like really addressable or something you can easily purchase like you can in the 58, but the ceiling mount Shure has a phased array conference room mic that I had an install done with, and they're fascinating technology, and they actually do now a pretty good job of what they claim to do. It's pretty remarkable.
That's really interesting. Thank you. Just adapt, manipulate. There's some conversation going on in the chat about how it's difficult getting to know your voice and getting to be comfortable with your voice. I really wish I had some advice. Getting comfortable with your voice it's one of the biggest hurdles in making music. That everybody hates their fucking voice. So just power through it. How much more of this incredibly amazing conversation do we want to have?
Alex always has something cool to say about getting to know your voice.
Alex, what's
over
your
the years.
what's your thought process on everything?
So let me not start with myself, but something interesting I've read. I forget who it was, but some big pop personality said that she first started with one of those children's cassette tapes with cassette recorders, where you have like this Fisher Price microphone and you can record yourself. And she recorded herself so many times that she got really familiar with her voice. And I think that's the key of understanding. First of all, using headphones when you sing into the mic, but also record yourself, listen back, record yourself again, listen back. Try to lose the sense of uncomfort over time just by exposure, because it only comes from a disconnect because you hear yourself differently from what you actually sound like. That doesn't mean you actually sound bad. It just means it's different and you need to get over that. You need to build the bridge. I think that's the way to go. Just record yourself over and over and listen to it back.
That's very good advice. Thank you. Brett, what are you thinking?
Dovetailing right into what Alex is saying, don't be afraid to be a character. That's what makes everyone's favorite artist, their favorite artist is that person is a character, to some degree, at least in their art. The other thing is just like you said, repetition. And I will say there's even another part of that where there's performance anxiety parts of that. Make sure that when you go to record, you're in a comfortable spot, that you're fine, that you're not worried about someone barging in, interrupting you, breaking that flow, whatever. Find that happy spot in your location, or throw the towels under the doors, turn on the fans all the way around to silence everyone else's ability to do whatever you got to do. Whatever if you're a person who likes to be who's more extroverted and you're cool with that, bonus points. Glad for you. I'm an introvert. So getting past that is the first step. After that, you just get to hear what your character sounds like, and you can manipulate that any way you want.
Thank you. Razi, what about you?
I think if a person was truly dedicated to getting past a hurdle and they were truly stuck on the distinction between, as Alex was mentioning, what your bone conduction, internal hearing sounds like versus your recorded thing, or you're really wanted to get on stage, but you just weren't past that hurdle yet and you needed a shortcut, or your recorded voice wasn't the way you wanted it. I think that I would say get a coach. Get a voice coach for a couple of months, like 8 weeks or something. And their reflection and making you do dumb as fuck sounding shit for a half hour is probably going to go further than most other things you can invent for yourself under your own direction, to get over it, to get past the how uncanny and weird it is to make utterances and record them and listen to them. I'm not sure that's universal, but I suspect that'll work magic for a lot of people.
Thank you. Yeah, read stuff and record yourself while you're listening. Because the difficulty is that when your voice vibrates through your head, it sounds more beautiful and more full and more amazing than when you hear it out loud, and it sounds so much different. And that could even be when you're on a Zoom call with someone, or just listen to your voice and get used to it. Okay. Did we want to talk about? We could change the subject now to something fantastic. I want to go ahead, Alex.
Creative vocal effects.
Sure. Hit me.
Oh, now I have to talk. Damn.
Yeah.
You said it.
The thing I always think about is like these interesting creative effects by companies like Eventide or other ones, but these are the ones where I thought, damn, I think I need to try to try them out with my vocals instead of just synthesizers, because they do something that you're not used to with your voice, and I think that can give it a very otherworldly touch to your music, and also because I think many people are afraid to sing, especially those kinds of people who are also very tinkery with audio. So if you put these two worlds together, I think you can get like a really interesting get into a really interesting space. They have like these pitch shifters, which is one thing I wanted to try. I did it with like one of the effects with which doubled your voice, but in a very, very alien kind of way, because it was just delay lines um, shifting each other. And if you then combine that with delays and other things, it gets really interesting. Sorry if I was rambling. I wasn't
No,
prepared.
that was a very good ramble. Thank you. Brett, what are you thinking?
I freaking love vocal effects. Um, yeah, so they're a heavy part of every song. But they're most of the time not exactly what you think they are. 90% of the effects I'm using are EQ and some form of limiting compressing. I got a couple soft tools that do that. Like if I just want to flatten out the entire signal, I'll use one tool. And if I want to do multi-band flattening, I use a different tool. Those are going to be principal to how I get to a point of applying effects. And that's kind of key, because if you want effects to work well on vocals, then you've got to make sure you've got something that they can bite onto. We've talked about, how vocoders and whatnot work. Carl, you've got some great suggestions there about how to uh, cut out certain frequencies or promote certain frequencies so that the vocoders and machines really have something to bite into. And that works the same way across any of these. Got to be where, reverbs are reverbs are reverbs. Some sound better than others, but ultimately you got to keep in mind that these things fill up your sonic space quickly. So, don't drown. Uh, uh, I use a lot of things that do more subtle distortions typically what I want to do as an overall concept in effect is I want there to be a clean version of my voice doing what I'm doing. Then I also want there to be some sort of demonic entity talking probably at the same time or maybe at different times. And then there's something maybe that is something that represents like an angelic thing. And my concept behind it is dissonance is pretty. Um, and so I don't have any problem pairing these things in whatever way suits. Another thing I'll do is I use a lot of automated rhythm type uh, processors. So once I have a basic concept for the overall vocal, for example, there's still that problem that you run into where your listener's going to get tired of whatever sound they're hearing and it's got to change, So you need to have something in there that starts doing something else, maybe to grab their attention and pull them back in. And then, that's also how you set up your breaks and everything like that. And it all dovetails into what you want with the vocals, if you're going to have vocals, because that's going to be central to the human ear. That was a long ramble, but yeah, you know what I mean.
That's a great ramble. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm Rob. Welcome. I'm Razi. How about you go, and I'll jump in after you.
As much as I really vibe with everything you're saying there, Brett, I think that that is part of the truth of the thing is to build your character, to figure out where your vocal is going, to discover maybe some changes to the lyrics and how long you dwell on syllables and what pitches you can even fit into a contour. You have to be singing with your effects chain. I mean, that is how in this cluster of genres, certainly more than, well, auto-tune is a big part of a lot of genres now too. Now, as in the past 20 years. But singing into your effects chain while you're developing the character is pretty powerful for coming up with how to perform into the effects. Delays that come back at a certain time inform how you change notes, and long reverbs can change in the same way medieval plain song was the way it was because of large ambiances. It affects the nature of what you're recording and what you're writing and what you're performing, and I think that's really powerful. But I don't fucking care. Like, throw some effects on it, do some stuff. Yeah, it's gonna be reverb, delay, flanger, chorus, and a lot of compression and some EQ and maybe distortion. All of those are gonna be in there somehow in the end of your pop tune. And maybe they're short, maybe they're long, maybe they're dramatic, maybe they're subtle. But man, show me a vocal that doesn't have like some amounts of all of those, and it's like, all right, it's 1968, and all you had was a tape flanger or something. But joking aside, once you've established that stuff, there may be a moment to switch to singing without the chain on to really sort of figure out your instrument and what you're doing. And I'm not saying the final take must be clean in your cans. You got to be monitoring maybe your final takes do have the wet chain on it because they're part of the performance. But I would say if it didn't dawn on you to take the entire processing chain off, all the long swirling echoes and meandering stereo processing and dynamics flattening, give it a bit of a whirl without those things so you can just reorient yourself with the range and feel what you're doing with your instrument, and maybe benefit from a little bit other kind of nuance that you wouldn't have gotten strictly monitoring with your character chain on. And then for the final takes, put them back on or don't, but you can make that decision at that point.
Thank you. There's some fantastic variation in concept and thought and approach here. A lot of us are synth nerds, and I want to throw this idea at people. And the most amazing instrument you have is your voice, and the instrument that is going to differentiate you to any other band is going to be your voice. they're not gonna listen to a bass line going, oh, that's angel spit. They're gonna listen to a voice going, that's demon hate. The minute they hear your voice. So treat your voice like it is a raw oscillator in the path of a synthesizer, and know that bucket brigade and compression and delay and all of these things in vocoders and auto tunings are different modules that you can put in place to fuck with that vocal. And just as during the song you're going to play with that frequency cutoff dial, why don't you move the bucket brigade and get to know the difference of your voice going through a tape delay and a bucket brigade and what it sounds like when you move it. Muck around with that stuff, and thanks, D. Go in there and if you've got a standalone little unit, because during the week we had a conversation about the Kaoss pad, and I got into it again this week. The great thing about the Kaoss pad is it's made to be manipulating effects real time, but you can do that with so much stuff. Because so much external gear, fucking early 2000s and onwards, and every single plugin ever made, you can automate, change, manipulate, tweak the effects time, the delay time, the reverb time, the way you can do all that stuff live. And when you start messing with that stuff, dude, if you want the best sound ever, change that bucket brigade, that delay time on the bucket brigade ever so slightly. If you want to make your voice sound like the creepiest fucking thing you've ever heard, stick it through a tape delay. There's so many tape delays in software now. It's the strongest. There is a Kaoss Pad VST. Give me the link, please, Alex. There's so many amazing things you can do, but remember, your vocals are so unique. And that's the cruelty of it, is that you hate your vocals. Come on, everyone hates their fucking voice. Wow, good on these Korg kids. So here's a VST version of a Kaoss pad. A lot of different software have different versions of Kaoss pad. Is there a price on it? Alex, I'm going to throw this to you. And the great thing about a Kaoss pad is, oh my God, everything, man. Vocals, drums, the whole lot. It just brings shit to life and makes you think about things in a way that you'd never think about it. How much is this fucking thing? Alex, talk to me.
So I got it as part of a bundle, so it wasn't much for me, but right now it's $150, so not cheap, but it will be on sale, I think.
Awesome. What are your thoughts on everything else?
I think you also need to remember that effects don't have to be static. So, for example, you can have sequence effects. I think there's some software which does that, but you can also, of course, just use the automation features in your DAW to just change stuff up. And also, there are things like envelope followers you could patch either virtually or physically into your effects to make them react to your vocals, which can give the whole thing another layer of expression. And also, don't forget that amplitude modulation and ring modulation are also interesting choices, though then it will lose some of its pitchedness because it will be more dissonant and less clean by nature.
Really, I'll just be really super quick about amplitude modulation and ring modulation. If you're kind of singing a melody line and you play that melody line in an octave below or an octave above or whatever, you get some wonderful things going on with your vocals. So there's a synthesizer that's modulating your voice. Really good fun. Brett, what's your thought on all this shit?
Alex brought up a good point there with envelope following, and it reminded me of a tool that I can use in FL Studio, which is essentially that. It's called Pretty Pete Controller. One of the coolest thing one of the coolest things I was able to do with this is I tied a secondary part of the song. It was actually a supporting section of the song I was writing. So the song initially started with its core beat, bass and drums and things like that. But then when I would sing, the second part or the supporting part of the song would then be allowed to also play. It worked very similarly to a vocoder, where instead of digitizing your voice, but instead of digitizing your voice, you have both your voice and its effect on the not the carrier, but the whatever. No, that's really the carrier. There's no modulator, in other words. What there is what your voice is doing is affecting the character of that secondary part. Anyway, the effect as it played out was almost like you could speak parts of the song into existence. It's a really kind of cool thing that you can do that goes outside of the typical flange, reverb, delay. Um, those are good things to look at.
Brilliant. Thank you. Razi, what are you thinking?
Well, in the interest of trying to sound like I'm contradicting myself as many times as possible, I do love a good effects chain. And in the end, mixing is a pleasure, and inventing a performance chain to go with the character is a pleasure. But Carl, you did bring it back very nicely to the performance is what we're talking about. The person that you are. There's no other as intrinsic instrument that we have more than voice. And whether you have a lot of control of it or not, it is you are attached to it, and it can be marvelously expressive in a way that you require years of dexterity training to get on other instruments, just from feeling your emotions and acting them out. You've got probably a couple of decades of language processing to bring to bear on that. And quite simply, putting that down on tape, you might have the most effective thing that we could hope for in a performance. Literally, I'm talking speech type of performances where you're not too worried about singing on pitch with coloratura and runs of hammered individual little tiny notes. You're just making sounds and expressing something in a way that means it's you and it means it's your message. And not that any amount of effects can really necessarily ruin or dilute that. It is an important thing, hopefully, to consider that it's you're attached to it, it's expressive, and if it's vocal music, then it's the focus of the piece to some greater extent.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Brett, more thoughts?
I'll tag right on to what Rezi's saying. Typically, the way I do it, just which may help, is I don't actually use the effects chain when I record. It is just my voice. 90% of the effects work I do is after I have gotten the character of what my voice is going to bring to the song. And that's where it comes back, to what we were talking about earlier, or what I was saying earlier, if I'm arguing with you, I'm not sitting here la 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 la. I'm hissing, I'm growling, I'm ready to rip your freaking head off, and I'm going to represent that character to the best of my ability before it ever hits the effects chain. And that's why 90% of what I've got really are those limiters and compressors and whatnot. It's to literally bring out those characters of my own voice or my own character's voice, done by these vocal cords, to the playing field first and foremost. That's the thing I can't claw back with effects.
Thank you. You bring up so this is a great conversation because there's so many different ways of attacking this. It's really good. Dee, thank you very much for the Laurie Anderson thing. Razi, talk to me.
Oh, the cat just distracted me. What was I thinking about? The idea of dynamics processing on the voice, like we didn't really plumb the whole depths of vocal comping, even though that's where we started. And one of the vocal editing, not necessarily comping separate takes into a vocal, but one of the vocal edit stage things that we didn't really touch on is leveling the segments in that phase. And if you've got some really hard plosives or some just ear splitting sibilants that you want to reduce, sibilants that you want to redo, then your creative a place for doing that is in the vocal edit. And a lot of times this kind of thing is handed over to your assistant, or Jojo will take care of doing that for me a lot. Just fast through it and get rid of all the bad sounds. But you, your I have this like sort of desire to rely less on limiters and compressors for this stuff, and I started doing this on the last album. I haven't really worked it out, but like the not necessarily the goal of zero limiters, but I've heard that, like, in some of the higher end mix cats are like, yeah, I don't put anything on the mix bus, it's done. Getting the vocal prepped in such a way that you're not getting artifacty weird things that are unpredictable from your effect. Brett, you pretty much said this in as many words, but focusing on what the initial track does to the subsequent effects that you've got on it is an important step. And not maybe people don't realize this if they've never edited a vocal, but frequently you are addressing the apostrophe T at the end of a word and just finessing that. Maybe it's the timing, maybe it's the volume, maybe it's the tone of it, but like, if you want all the end of your phrase to line up, sometimes you're taking the breath at the end of and making all the multi-tracks line up. But hopefully this is part of deciding to preserve the initial performance of a great take and create a studio vocal story event with that character. Once you're going to do all this swirly effects chains, is having a beautifully, lovingly treated basic vocal track, or vocal track and double, or 6 tracks in the harmonies, but you've treated those syllables that you just landed on too hard, and now they're making your compressor go, and the next phrase has a ramp back up to volume, and you go in on that syllable, you take the clip volume down, and it doesn't hit the compressor anymore. So I always focus on that a lot, and it makes my compressors do a more of a stress kind of sound to the entire thing rather than a level control. Timing, plosives, sibilants, effects on the compressors down the chain, and levels. These are all things I like to address and enjoy addressing when JoJo's not doing it in the respecting the performance and enhancing what the character should be doing to the effects.
Totally. Brett, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'll just typically add it right onto that. Using what I'm working on right now, just as an example, because it actually follows the same pathway. But I'll do 1 to 3 straight takes the best I can to get those initial elements, the LFO, if you will, elements into the piece. And then, like on this one, for example, I nixed most of everything from the second and third takes. You don't get to hear the raw take directly, but it's unedited and it plays live throughout the entire thing. And what's actually happening is I've designated segments of that audio track as being unique and said, you do this at this effects chain. And so it becomes also part of automation at that point. And so it allows me to, it goes right back down to preserving what you, the human, can provide to it. And often that gets lost if you have the effects chain as part of the recorded product. You can't claw back the effect that you put on it once you recorded it that way. So anyway.
Brilliant. Thank you. Rezi, last word
Yeah,
is
I think
yours.
we're definitely wrapping it up on that. And just to also plant the distinction for people who might not have done it, the experience of recording, listening, monitoring your vocal chain is distinct from printing those baked into your vocal so you can't extract them later. Um, Generally speaking, when all of us are talking about performing with the effects chain on, it's just in the cans. It's not necessarily getting recorded, so that every time you hit play, those effects are live, being regenerated, and you can still change them later. You may print them also because your VST licenses are going to expire and you've used things that aren't supported anymore. And when you open the session in 6 months and the company went out of business, you want them printed. But there is a distinction between baking your vocal with the effects into one track and then regretting that you can't remove the compressor and delay because you changed the tempo versus your clean vocal never being heard except with the effects on it, but they're being generated live by the computer as you hit play. They're not baked into the vocal performance.
Thank you. There's a lot here. There's a lot here, and there's a lot of variation and difference in like different ways of attacking this. Really, because I'm telling you, like vocals, people don't spend enough time on vocals. We're going to wrap this up, and I thank everyone for being a part of that. Just really quickly, I got an idea. Wednesday nights, our mutual amazing friend Alex over at Vulture Culture does a deep dive into synths. Alex is looking at the K2000 at some point, and that's, you know, because Rob was kind enough to send his K2000 to Alex. Like, I was thinking it would be great for other K2000 users to jump on this string and we maybe have a chat about, you know, the immensity of the K2000. Like, where do you start? We're not going to have this conversation now. So, you know, Brett and Rob and anybody else who's around and who uses a K2000 or has experience with a K2000, it would be a lovely topic to dump, a fucking endless topic to jump into, to kind of like prepare the way for when Alex deep dives into it. I don't know how he's going to do it in one episode. This is like a fucking one episode per algorithm. But anyway, thank you so much for being this one. Today has been a rough day, and remember Drake's GoFundMe for his family and his music. Go get some. Drake's always going to be with us, so you know. So please, let's, you know, send him some love. Send his family a lot of love. They really need it right now. Rezi, thanks for jumping in here.
And thank you for hosting this. It's a service to have us here every week. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and everybody else who was part of this. You know, thank you so much for being part of it. I feel like I'm supposed to. Yeah. Okay. So if you're watching this on, we'll be back next week here. And if you're watching on anything else, let's rate on to MTV TV. Like if you're on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, we're gonna go to MTV TV and we're gonna get some amazing music over there. So Diana, if you could hit that magic button, and I guess everybody's homework is get a 58. Yeah, let me know when that raid's gone through. And there it is. Check out Rezi's beautiful 58.
We are rated.
Fantastic. All right. Bless y'alls.